What is your focus point? If your focus point is on all that crap, you're screwed. If your focus point is on the positive things that are working and how to add to that, you're going to flourish.
Hey, welcome back to today's episode. I am so excited today to introduce Chris because he's going to get inside my head a little bit, and I think we're going to get inside of yours a little bit. It's going to be fun, Chris. Tell us who you are and what do you do?
Well, I don't know about heads. We're gonna get in and figure it out together is what I like to say.
Awesome. Well, let's do it.
Yeah, man. I start out the show every time that I do a show on Through a Therapist's Eyes with the human emotional experience. Let's figure this out together. And I think that's really important because,
Love it.
I'm a mental health and substance abuse therapist, right? I mean, but
Love
I
it.
can assure you, Todd, I'm not in anybody's head. And you don't want to be in my head. It's a scary place.
Well, that's probably fair enough. I generally get scared enough of my own head. I don't want to be in anyone else's. That's why I do what I do. You do what you do.
Yeah, I know. Well, we do what we do together. And it's funny because, I find that there is a lot of fear doing what I do, with emotions and
Yes.
managing the way that we feel. And when people
Yes.
find out what I do, I get similar responses and inquiries
I'm
about
sure.
the way that you started, right? Like, oh, what are we going to do? It's like intimidating. We're going to get into your head. He's going to get into my head. And we're going to be like into And
I'm just dumb enough to say that out loud. You know what I mean?
So I've been doing mental health and substance abuse therapy for a little while, since 1995. I always like to make the joke on the video. You can see, even though I look kind of young, right? Like,
Oh,
not,
yeah.
Not looking too bad for
95.
50.
A lot of my guests weren't even born then, but yeah, keep going.
Ouch. Ouch. It's getting so real. I don't like those jokes anymore, but
Sorry.
No, in way of scaling up, I love your show and I love what you're doing because a lot of people don't get to talk about those things quite so much in the world that we are as a founder.
Yeah.
So I've been doing therapy. I mean, that's my day job. That's my main gig. I am a mental health therapist, but I've always been an entrepreneurial in mind kind of as well. And so I'm kind of drawn to the topic, and I love talking about these two topics, and blending them together is so cool that I don't get to do very often. Mental health and business.
Yeah.
Business. True business foundership and entrepreneurial mindset. And boy, I think there's a lot of parallels between the two, right?
Well, parallel, yes, but definitely, like, I don't know an entrepreneur that doesn't need to take a double check on their mental health. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's taxing. There's a lot there. There's a lot there. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I think I have a lot of perspective on it from a mental health therapist perspective and a founder. I guess I didn't finish answering the question. I mean, I'm really scaling up some things that I'm excited about with Through a Therapist's Eyes, right?
And that's
I'm
your
an author,
and
podcaster.
Your book, right?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What's that?
I was gonna say that's your podcast and your book.
Right. Yeah. Cool little big crazy eye looking at you there.
Love it. But yeah,
the second book actually is coming out on marriage. Marriage is coming out in a second. I'm excited about that. And we just created a program called "This Will Not Defeat Me" after sexual abuse. A random,
that's a big deal,
right? Random topic that might seem a little random, but in our listenership on business and scaling, just take a crazy number and a guess, Todd. How many people do you think are listening have dealt with sexual abuse in your listenership? Right?
I don't even dare to go there because that whole topic is just like so dark. I don't even like to think about it.
And it's so taboo, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be willing to bet a significant double-digit percentage of even business founders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, FCOs. I mean, we all are susceptible to these real realities. And if you don't think that's not going to affect how you scale a business, dude, right?
Well, I can tell you one thing. For those that are trying to grow and scale, we're talking about business growth and scaling, not you. I mean, When it comes to that, I hear a lot of abuse stories that come from the tight, intimate groups of startups. A lot of things happen when you're that working close confines all the time.
Well, there's
But
that, but
don't make the mistake.
there's that. Yes, but there's that. But what just occurred to me? I didn't plan on talking about this, but
Yeah,
that's what we
me
do, right? We
either.
figure this thing out together.
Right.
So when you're looking at the type of people that are really interested in doing high level business,
Yeah.
okay, they tend to be overachievers. I know because I'm one. An overachiever. I write a book.
Yeah,
I
I
do a
get it. I
podcast.
get
I
it.
started 2 businesses. I've got
Whew.
one running for 13 years now, doing therapy in Charlotte area. It's
Nice.
overachievers. What creates an overachiever mentality? Well, a lot of times it's a whole lot of that undercurrent that never really is
Yeah,
dealt with, and it causes us to go to the extra length, the extra mile to be successful, which normal people typically don't do. So if you're a
I
founder,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, you've got a lot
We're
going
all kind
on.
of whack jobs in our own little way. It definitely is. The more, to be honest, I had no idea that people did not think like me until I was well into my 20s. I mean, I had, I remember I had a business partner at the time, and we were both so nervous to talk to our employees about specific topics because we didn't want them to go start their own business. And then we were like, dude, nobody's motivated enough to do it. Like, it's a stupid thing to go start a business. And for those of us that do, it's like
Who does this?
we get into the super overprotective mode of like, I don't want to share this idea because someone's going to go do it. The reality is, you could do the Elon Musk style and give away all your secrets, and nobody competes with Tesla on the same level that Tesla operates. It's
Right.
crazy.
It is. Yeah. No, there's a lot of truth to that. And there's psychological and emotional reasons for that. And here's the thing, as it relates to, the mental health side of things, there are a lot of awesome pieces of a personality that get created through
Right.
trauma, through hardship, through
Okay.
emotional pain, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the awesomeness that gets created from that, you'll see, throughout the world, really. And I've had
Right.
the honor and privilege of talking to some pretty high level people, in a therapy experience.
Cool.
And what you'll see though is that at some point, if that's not dealt with, it'll crack and crash under its own pressure.
I get it. Yeah, I get
Right.
it. I think that's very valid. Yeah.
Yeah. You only go so far, and the harder that you go, oftentimes the more that you crash. And so, I love, before the mics came on, you were telling me about your audience and the
Yeah.
target. Really, your sweet spot is that new founder, that new entrepreneur, that new mindset of like, hey, I've got this going. Now what?
Right. It's working. Now what? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're getting ready to get an opportunity to really look at some of the emotional now what's that
Yeah.
will excel and drive your company to the next level. And I believe that.
Well, I can appreciate that. Now, as before we dive into our avatar, because I really want to do that.
Okay.
Let's talk just take one step back about your business, because you are a therapist. Yes. You're also a podcaster. You've interviewed hundreds of people on your show. You've got a book that's really focused on the same topic. Tell us how you've been able to kind of build and grow that, because I'm curious, because a lot of therapists are just fine doing a one-off deal. They get some clients, they've got a little clinic, and they do their thing. You're taking a whole different approach on this that a lot of people don't dare jump into. Tell us about that journey real quick, and then let's talk about some of the avatars we've been talking about, because I think this will add a lot of value to the conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's because I care,
Yeah.
like I really care. And I don't mean to say that other people don't by any
Sure.
means, but there's a passion behind what I do about mental health and
Right.
and working with people and seeing the progress that that people can make when we really deal with those real things, those dark things, as you kind of said, or those
Sure.
hurtful things. And so I think in caring, I really wanted to kind of get to a place where I can extend that to a greater means, right?
Sure.
A friend of mine who's a chiropractor said he was trading hours for dollars, and that's still what I do because I've got a passion for doing the individual, you know,
Sure. Sure.
process. That's what therapy is. But I really am starting to get to a place where this needs to be bigger. Like this needs to be a wider scope,
Love it.
and and that's because I know of the power behind it and how it can affect people, right?
Right, right. Well, and that's really impactful because a lot of people in professional services like you, they don't really ever have that desire to touch more people. They're happy with the I think of the dentist who's just happy to kind of let the office flow as long as it's making money. But there are the unique people like you in a professional services category where they do see a bigger picture. How can I touch more people? How can I change more lives? It's very clear that you're set out to do that in your mission with your book, your podcast, and even coming on to other people's shows. I mean, this is a big deal, in my opinion, to see professional service people like you reaching out and going beyond the norm to help people. I think it's cool.
Well, Todd, I thank you for that, and little encouragements along the way make a big difference, right? So, as the
Right.
founder of a business, find those little encouraging spots because you will get discouraged a lot.
Right.
So thank you for that, Todd. And I would say, like, yeah, it's in part because this has been such a undervalued or missed topic for so
Yeah.
long. Mental health care has been the redheaded stepchild of healthcare for a
Yeah. Yeah.
long time,
No, I get that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and that needs to end. I'll make
Right.
that bold statement. The show that we're going to do, actually, I'm going to record after we're done recording our show on Through a Therapist's Eyes. 90% of us believe that we are currently in a mental health crisis, and that's in the States. I don't know around the world.
Are you
Well,
serious?
that's what a recent poll said. And we're going to talk about it on the show. Just what did my
Wow.
panel of therapists think about that? How many times do you think you have 90% continuum in this country these days agree on something?
On anything? Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that important. It's that big. So we're going to do it. We're
My
going to keep on
goodness.
blasting into the universe
That
and
is
do it.
so. I am so glad you're here, and I just wanted to take a few seconds to tell you about a program that we have assembled with a lot of our podcast guests and a lot of people who are listening to the show who are feeling the same way that they do. There's a recurring theme. You'll hear a lot of these founders talk about, I couldn't have done it without my team. I couldn't have done it without a support group of peers. I couldn't have done it without having someone to talk to that understood my feeling of isolation as an operator of my business. You see, you're not alone. It is hard running a business, and it's even harder when you know you can't express all your deepest concerns and frustrations with your executive team. It makes them nervous. It gets them scared. You don't want scared people on your executive team. So where do you turn? The Captain's Council is where you turn. The Captain's Council, it is an organization that we are put together with podcast guests, as well as people who are listening who are in the same boat. You see, peers are the only ones that can give you the type of empathy, the type of advice that only a founder or operator know and understand. Go check it out at captainscouncil.com. I know you're going to love what you see there. We have put together an organizational structure that has small group settings, a global community of founders and operators, as well as monthly and quarterly in-person events. You're going to love what you see there. I can't wait for you to check it out and enjoy the rest of this episode. That is so interesting. I wonder what the percentage is of business owners who feel that way because, truthfully, like I just finished an interview with Trevor Testuite. He's a founder of a digital marketing agency tool. And we were just talking about how, 5 years into his business, he just felt the weight of of the burden of having 100 employees and being bootstrapped and all that weight. Will you tell us about that? Because I don't think he's the only one. I know I'm not the only one that has felt that. What is that weight? What is that burden that every founder tends to carry with them? And what are some solutions for them?
What immediately occurs to me right off the get-go, Todd, as you say that, is the president of these United States had that phrase that got created. The buck stops here, and we forget that in nowadays in our politics. But if you back that down to just even a small company such as I run with 6-7 employees doing therapy, there is no one else that problems come to. I mean, somebody's got a problem with the internet just dropped. Well, they're coming to me. I don't know anything about the internet,
Right.
Or the weight and burden you feel and the responsibility of, like, if things struggle and this company goes under, these 50 people are going to have a hard time picking themselves up off the street.
No doubt. No doubt.
So I think there's a humanistic component to what we have going on. Also, unfortunately, not always altruistic. The burden comes also, it occurs to me, from the pride that we have and the experience that we have of, do I look good? Am I doing a good job? Are people looking at me critically? So I'm not good enough. So I think there's a lot of aspects.
There's a lot of
burdens.
That.
Yeah.
And so what do you do? I mean, how do you pinpoint what is that feeling? Because I know that I've felt that. I know that you've probably felt that. Where does that come from? Where is that overwhelm and that burden? Because we know it's not a physical burden, but it feels like it. It feels like your shoulders are just like,
love that. Love that. You're right. It's not a physical burden. I mean, we're not laying bricks here, but the mental burden, is so strong. It's so strong. So I'll go back to the shameless plug. Tune in Through a Therapist's Eyes, and we will help you with all your ails and ills.
Dude, I honestly can't. That's a great ad spot. I will definitely go listen to that episode because it's such a passionate thing. Like it's so relevant to today's conversation with business leaders, because especially operators, sometimes not even the co-founder or other people even feel it as much as the operator, the CEO, the person who's making that final decision. And I think that some of it comes from just looking at your teams and saying, holy crap, I'm supporting 100 families.
Yeah.
Sometimes just the thought of that is like, ugh.
Yeah. There's something to that, isn't it?
Yeah. What's the escape from that? Because I think that would be so helpful for people to know. How do I get out of that funk when there really is nothing to be worried about? The business is operating. You know what I mean? You got 100 employees. Something's working.
You kind of just went a little bit to one of the things that you can do. Yeah. So that was a funny answer. I'll give you the shameless plug, but the real answer is you just turned that around and looked at the positive aspect. So for some reason, we will see the negative. We will see the problems. We will see, because a lot of founders, a lot of business people are very anxious people. They won't tell you that.
Yeah.
But their worry factor makes them get so driven, like we were talking about with the high achiever. So they're seeing all the negatives, and that makes the burden worse. When guess what? You've already got the LLC up and running. You've already got a couple of business lines operational. You've already got some things in place, and there's some things that are working. So you just turned the focus point. And my book, that was one of the 4 highlights. What is your focus point? If your focus point is on all that crap, you're screwed.
Right.
If your focus point is on the positive things that are working and how to add to that, you're going to flourish.
Yeah.
But there are other things. Breathing,
I love that.
Literally, the cornerstone of mental health. I call self-care fun, relaxing, enjoyable activities, and aren't self-destructive in any way. And for us high achievers, are not work-related tasks. So you've got to take breaks.
So no golf? You just said it. No,
you gotta go golfing, bro.
Okay. All right.
Gotta go golfing. I'm a golfer too.
Good.
Although not in this humidity we get down south, man. That's brutal. Do not like that. So I go kayaking instead.
Good,
oh, wait a minute.
Good. That's a
I
good
read a book
alternate.
and get into a fun reading activity. Oh,
Right.
my best one is the Pittsburgh Steelers football game, man. Oh, it's
Oh,
coming here in 2 or 3 months,
that sounds
right?
stressful.
Oh, well, yeah, that one is a little stressful. Care a lot, but
So when you think of the positives and when you think of the things, I think that is about the only way out of that mental game that we get ourselves trapped into. And it is amazing. I want you to explain a little bit too about, running businesses are very much logistical. Like, I pull this lever, this thing happens, and this money comes in, right? Like, it's a lot of lever pulling, it's a lot of logic, it's a lot of things like that. How do we keep the emotional side of business from consuming us when so much of it is just pulling levers?
It's interesting that you put it that way. I definitely agree with some of the structural things that you put into place that is pulling levers and making money, or pulling levers and providing service,
Right.
getting your trinkets sold or your gadgets seen. I get all
Sure.
that. But wait a minute. I don't want to agree totally with you,
Yeah,
right?
I don't think you will. I don't think you will. But I like to
Because
be a little controversial.
what's that? You like what?
I like a little controversy here and there.
Controversy's good because we learn together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's how we learn.
A lot of business is emotional relational, isn't it?
Relational, yes, for sure. Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
anytime you have a relational interaction between that
True.
person you're trying to sell your widget, or the advice that you're trying to offer in a business consultant relationship, or the organization that you're trying to kind of create for some world
Fair
research
enough.
group, I don't care what it is. If
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah. Fair
have
enough.
the mental relationships, the mental health with the relationships going in a way, like I've been a part of a lot of organizations through the years that have had terrible interagency relational politics that just destroy the outcome and the
Right.
product,
Right. Right. Right.
right? So you've got to be aware of how those things are kind of running into the ground, or
So there's a
how
balance.
there's a balance. Yeah, there's a big balance.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I guess as a man, I think more lever pulling, but
Yeah,
to be honest, I'm also a very social person, and I do agree with the premise that business growth does have so much to do with relationships, and that is all emotional. There's a huge emotional tie there. So what else are you seeing as you observe and you help people who are business operators with some of these mental health issues? What are the big things you see? I mean, what are the things that you're seeing that I'm not even alluding to that we need to watch out for?
well, I'll tell you one that I know you're aware of, that just going back and adding those two together, because another thought occurs to me as we're talking, Todd, right? Like,
Yeah.
When you're looking at the relational aspects and the emotional aspects, well, one of the plugs I think that you do, that you're currently, and I totally applaud you for, what is it you're doing, the captain's group, or
Captain's Council. Yeah. Yeah.
love the captain's council, man. Love that. I'll tell you
Thank you.
why. Because if you're lever pooling and you're kind of doing the functional structural realities in
Right.
business, then you're also probably trying to take a whole lot more on your own. And when you do that
No
by
doubt.
yourself, guess what happens?
Ugh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the pressure.
That's what happens.
They need to see you on video, right? Because you went with your hands back and you pulled your shoulders, and it's like, oh,
Ugh.
yeah,
It's
you
that
can't
it's
do it
telling
alone.
that bear to stay away, right?
Yes. So there's a lonely world when it comes
There
to
is.
being a founder and being an entrepreneur. And we try to start a lot of times by doing partnerships, and then you figure
Totally.
out, wait a minute, that doesn't work out usually really well. I need to backtrack and
Totally.
realize that I'm going to execute this myself, but I'm going to pull in support for
Yes.
me.
Yes. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because that, this conversation is very relevant to that. And I'm not going to shamelessly plug too long, but I will say the people I've had on my show who have been the most successful, almost all of them can point back to a group of friends or a group of peers who understand the burden, and it helps them make it lighter. You know what I
Right.
mean?
100%.
And my movement to push out this product of Captain's Council is entirely that. You know, I interview hundreds of CEOs, hundreds of founders, and every time I talk to them, the biggest burden is that loneliness
Yeah.
and feeling like, who do I talk to when, if I share with if my investor knows I don't really know what my next play is, they're going to freak out. If my COO doesn't know that I don't have a plan for this thing, they're
Right.
going to freak out. Who do I
Right.
go to? You know what I mean?
It's terrifying, Todd.
It's
And
terrifying.
I'm telling you, we look at these successful folks and we kind of feel like, we were talking about the mindset of insecurities before we turned the show on, I think. And we look at these people that are, successful in one way or another by our predisposed notion.
Right.
Well, they're not feeling that way.
No.
Or they certainly weren't feeling that way when they weren't successful and you didn't see them 20 years ago. Because this is a long grind, man. Your avatar, again, at 5 months or a few years into this business, dude, you have to be clumping along sometimes for 15, man, years.
You do.
And people don't think about that.
No, they don't.
And what gets you through that whole journey, that real dark time, and it goes up and down. I mean, it's tough sometimes long before you get to that.
Totally. And you brought up something interesting right there that I hear a lot of people talk about is literally until the day they exit, which if you haven't thought about it, you need to be thinking about it now. Like, even if you're just starting, be thinking about your exit. But I've talked to so many people who have exited successfully and they say, I really didn't understand the value of what I had built until someone offered me the money to buy it at that price. Like, you don't even understand that what you've done is impactful, it's meaningful. There's some value there that you're not giving yourself for building that.
That's really true, Todd. And, and I'm glad we've arrived here because, again, another little tidbit, there's lots of suggestions that people have done it with the jar of success or the jar of awesomeness. You've heard these little pieces of keep a file. Corny I am in my brain. I'm not so creative with names, I guess. Mine's called the feel-good file, right?
Yeah, you could use some marketing help, buddy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Thank you. You're totally right. I'm humble enough to admit it. In that file cabinet over there, I have all kinds of things over the years that remind me of, wow, there is great value in Metrolina Psychotherapy Associates and what you do in individual relationships. I mean, Todd, there's a letter in there where a lady says that I saved her life in a crisis hotline back when I started, years ago. And it's so humbling to have a sense that you really do make an impact. You really do have a purpose. There's a good guy, his name's just escaping me, wrote The Purpose-Driven Church, and he's pretty famous. His name's just escaping me. But it's having that purpose and knowing you're having that impact. If you don't know that, it's so sad to me that you just said, and it's true, that you don't know it until you're done. It's kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
How fulfilling can it be if you know it while you're doing it?
No kidding, right? No, very few people are at that point mentally. And so, this is honestly a really therapeutic conversation, like I anticipated it might be. How do people get in touch with you? We're going to put links to your book down below in the comments and things like that. But who in your circle has kind of been that pillar that you lean on, or that mentor who's kind of helped you get to what you've been able to accomplish in your business?
I appreciate that, the chance to kind of speak about that. I've thought a lot about this over the years, and I've had a few opportunities to be able to cite her powerful influence in my life. And, there's a lot of people, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm a part of a mastermind group for business.
Cool.
God top and front center, is my
nice
great source of strength.
Of course.
But in a humanistic sort of way, outside of the business people and all, it's my mom.
I love it.
She gave me a solid foundation and standing that only came through hardship and struggle, right? So bear with me for just a moment to describe why I chose that, because it's not just a regular, oh, my daddy or my mommy. Dude, I watched her go through serious struggle when we were going through a divorce when I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old or something like that. we were eating government cheese. She became a single mom, not having any training. She was a stay-at-home mom prior to being a single mom. My brother and I didn't make it easy on her at all. My sister was disabled, as my younger sister. And so I watched this lady go and get her first part-time job, go and get some education, get a couple of more jobs in addition to doing then full-time school, commuting from Wheeling, West Virginia to Morgantown, West Virginia, because I'm also a mountaineer, by the way, very proud West Virginia University mountaineer. So that's an hour and a half commute, Todd. So this woman did school, rose kids, full-time, part-time work, and launched a career in the human services field. I watched that woman do what she did, right? And I'm like, dude, then we can deal with struggle. We can deal with struggle.
Love it. That's
Strong
a fantastic shout out. Fantastic shout out. And for those of you listening, I do recommend you start trying to understand your own mental health. Like, as hard as it is to admit, we are all kind of wacky in our own little way of thinking that we can go out and just create and create and create. And we do. And many of us are really successful at that. But you've got to get those check-in moments. Get those check-in moments, whether it's a peer community like what I'm doing, whether it's through a therapist, whether it's through, I suggest all of the above, to be honest, because you really do need it from more than one place. You need to understand what's going on in your head so that you can continue to be that leader that you need to be to build your business the way it needs to go. That's it.
Yeah, and the last part to reaffirm, through a therapist's eyes, we talk about all mental health and substance abuse topics, really good, fun conversations. We have fun on our show, believe it or not. We have a blast talking about feelings and emotions.
Hey, you know what? I think it would be kind of humorous to talk about some of your therapy sessions. There's got to be some fun humor in some of those.
Dude, I have felt like if I was going to do another career, I'm just too afraid to do like an open mic night or something. But I would be an awesome
you
comic.
need to do open mic and therapy, because that just feeds you stories. That's just content delivery right there.
Listen, my shtick on stage would be like, okay, listen, we're going to do big group therapy concept, and immediately everyone's going to go, and I'm going to say, you sir in the front end, man, how about we start with you and talk about the marriage relationship that clearly you have there with a lady, and we'll just go on from there. And the comedy show would be classic.
I think that's your next path in life, buddy. We'll get you there. And if this is the kickoff to that, let's hope that you give me some credit later. I need the shout out, so the confidence build later.
Yes, we'll do.
Chris, thank you so much for being on the show, and I really appreciate the time you've given us today. For those of you listening, you do check this stuff out. Read the book, figure out where you're at, and let's get you moving the right direction with your business. Growth and scaling doesn't happen on shaky ground. Fill that thing up, get stable, make sure you know where you're taking your team, and it'll happen. Thank you, Chris, for being here, buddy.
Honor and privilege to having me here. I really appreciate it, man. Best wishes to you.
I am so glad you're here, and I just wanted to take a few seconds to tell you about a program that we have assembled with a lot of our podcast guests and a lot of people who are listening to the show who are feeling the same way that they do. There's a recurring theme. You'll hear a lot of these founders talk about, I couldn't have done it without my team. I couldn't have done it without a support group of peers. I couldn't have done it without having someone to talk to that understood my feeling of isolation as an operator of my business. You see, you're not alone. It is hard running a business, and it's even harder when you know you can't express all your deepest concerns and frustrations with your executive team. It makes them nervous. It gets them scared. You don't want scared people on your executive team. So where do you turn? The Captain's Council is where you turn. The Captain's Council, it is an organization that we are put together with podcast guests, as well as people who are listening who are in the same boat. You see, peers are the only ones that can give you the type of empathy, the type of advice that only a founder or operator know and understand. Go check it out at captainscouncil.com. I know you're going to love what you see there. We have put together an organizational structure that has small group settings, a global community of founders and operators, as well as monthly and quarterly in-person events. You're going to love what you see there. I can't wait for you to check it out and enjoy the rest of this episode.